Today we got to talk about Stanford eliminating 11 sports from its athletic programs, the Ivy League canceling all of fall sports, not just football, and what that means for big-time college football headed into the rest of July and early August, and all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. So it's college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Man, that was a weak burp. Thought that was going to be louder than it was. So drinking a lot of water because, well, this is going to be a very, very in-depth upload. Let's get right to it, man. So Stanford eliminates 11 athletic programs. Among them, you're talking about swimming. You're talking about, well, not swimming, but artistic swimming. That'd be synchronized swimming, rowing, wrestling. We're talking about volleyball. We're talking about all the sports that help contribute to them winning the NCAA's Directors Cup for a 25th time in a row. We're talking about like 27 gold medals here and even more outstanding alumni. Stanford also sits on a $26.5 billion endowment, and they are cutting 11 sports to basically try to counteract losing $70 million. And this is a big deal because, well, Stanford also plays big-time college football. Have nothing to say yet about whether or not they're going to play football, but it is not looking especially great, as Stanford is one of these schools that does not depend on big-time football for its finances. And I'm going to be referencing my notes over here because I want to make sure that I get this right and I get you as much detail as we possibly can, okay? So to counteract that $70 million deficit, they're also going to lose 22 jobs for coaches and 20 staff support positions. So that's 42 jobs that get lost at Stanford. And we're talking about rowing, sailing, fencing, field hockey, squash, synchronized swimming, wrestling, men's volleyball, and others. Like, I understand for many of you, those aren't sports that you necessarily get up for. Like, you don't play a lot of squash, but I submit to you there are a lot of people that do, and they really enjoy doing it for Stanford. And when you take into account, again, 20 national championships, 27 Olympic medals, it's a big deal. They're very proud of it. And I would be too if it was my alma mater. Then take into account that the academic year is already in doubt for so many. But Stanford is one of the wealthiest universities in the country, and they can kind of afford to do this, right? They can afford to cut off their losses on the athletic stuff. And that's where we get into this when we talk about the Ivy Leagues, of which there are 8 schools. None of them give scholarships to play football. They don't play playoffs or championships. They play from September to Thanksgiving, and then they call it good. The Ivy League really gets to stand on its academic reputation and pull in a ton of money from its alumni base, let alone the kind of graduates that they put out into the world. You go to Harvard not to play football. You go to Harvard to get a Harvard degree so you can get a good job, right? Same thing with Princeton or Yale or Dartmouth or insert any Ivy here. But their decision to say, we're not going to even entertain fall sports comes after they have said they're going to limit capacity on campus to just 40%. And they're going to ask their students who are on campus to do these classes virtually, which is basically them laying out to you, we don't particularly care to have you in class. We care that you get to say that you go to Harvard, which is only worth as much as anybody else gets to say, oh, wow, Harvard. It's not really going to enrich you as a student because we have data to show that virtual learning, online learning is not as good as in-person learning for a number of different reasons, but not the least of which is, being able to just discuss stuff with the professor on a one-on-one basis that meets you where you are. Now, from that, I want to also insert here that we have Ivy League coaches that were asked not to put together contingency plans, right? They weren't asked, hey, in case we want to play a few games, what would that look like? No. We had dudes that were quite literally saying, hey, look, I just do what I'm told. Princeton football coach Bob Surace, Surace, correct me, S-U-R-A-C-E. If you can put it phonetically into the comments, I will not screw up this man's name again. He said the only way that he can look forward to a possibility in the spring is one word, that'd be hope. And he added that a vaccine, better therapies, and people following health guidelines would be necessary if there were going to be any chance of playing football in the spring. In the spring. So those of y'all that don't want to wear a mask or aren't really interested in protecting the rest of us or even making the rest of us feel better about this, let alone the data that shows that wearing a mask or a cloth covering can help stop the spread, get on board, dog. I don't care about you yelling about it anymore. just go get a mask when you're out in public, put it over your face, right? I showed you mine. You can check it out on the Twitters. I'll put it on the channel if that's what needs. Matter of fact, insert PSA right here. Peep game. We're on cdc.gov right now, all right? Says, why is it important to wear a cloth face covering? Not PPE, not your N95 respirators, just a cloth face covering. And what they say here on the CDC website is cloth face coverings may help prevent people who have COVID-19 from spreading the virus to others. Wearing a cloth face covering will help protect people around you, including those at higher risk of severe illness from COVID-19 and workers who frequently come into contact with other people, stores, restaurants, places you go. And then cloth face coverings are more likely to reduce the spread of COVID-19 when they are widely used by people in public settings. The spread of COVID-19 can be reduced when cloth face coverings are used along with other preventative measures, including social distancing, frequent hand washing and cleansing, disinfecting frequently touched surfaces. And it looked like this. And we're here. You and me. Let's do this so that we can get some damn football. So from this decision, right, that Stanford is giving up on 11 sports permanently, like they're not coming back, and the Ivy League is not going to play fall sports at all, let alone winter sports during 2020, we add to this that there are 1,100 schools that are inside of the NCAA. And there are already schools who have said we are not having fall sports on our campus. They are Williams, Bowdoin, Swarthmore, and Grinnell. Like those aren't big schools, and most of them don't play football. We talk about the Cal State system, but that's Division II, and they don't really play football. They're also not going to have fall sports. So what we're really talking about is optics. We're talking about how does it look if Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Alabama, Ohio State are still going to push forward to play football. Can their university presidents put up with the optics, fair or unfair, that say that they're going to put these players out in harm's way so that they can make some money? I'm not prepared to say that that's going to go well for them. Thinking about Oklahoma and Missouri State. Missouri State might have a hard time traveling to Norman, right? And it's been floated by a number of columnists that I really enjoy that it's not out of the question for Oklahoma to say, hey, we will foot the bill for you to come play us and get beat down at Owen Field. To which I say, one, I'm not prepared to say that Oklahoma is willing to foot the bill because they're already seeing pay cuts and budget cuts. And add to this, Learfield IMG College has already told many folks that it does business with, we're going to be late on the payments this year, man. So there's money that is still going to be outstanding at the time when you want to hold these games. And then you're going to ask these kids from Missouri State to get on a bus from Springfield to come down here to get their butts kicked and then go back home the same day so that they can save money and do what? Bring in money for the school so that they can what? Get beat down? They don't get anything out of that. If they don't get to play in front of anybody, they don't get to line their pockets with anything. They don't get a little something. They get to put on pads and put themselves at risk and get beat down. I don't see how that's going to really go over well with the Missouri State football players, and we know enough about college football players to know that they're pretty up on things. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes down. I would also like to finish with North Carolina had 37 COVID tests, right, that were positive. Notre Dame has had just one, and they've tested like 150 people so far. So it varies, but it's really dependent on how much money you have and how much money you can spend on testing and how good you're going to be about enforcing all of these restrictions that are going to allow for a safe environment to play football, which is how you can get to a place where you only see Power 5 teams play football and you only see a handful of those play football, because some of those actually are going to make some money regardless. Not a lot of money, certainly not as much money as last year, but money that could be brought into their schools. It's about whether or not you can convince the kids and their parents, some of which are not kids anymore. They're over 18, so they're adults and they get to make decisions for themselves, that this is going to be safe and that this is going to be good for them, let alone whether or not we're going to get good at it or be good at it. In the meantime, the only thing we can do is to practice social distancing and wear our cloth face covering masks. Because if you think for 1 second that I will not turn this channel into European soccer commentary and crappy NFL games, you got another thing coming. Deuces.